Well, this is an all-age service today, and that means I've got a special guest here, everybody, and I've just got to, and I'll be ready in just a second here, and he is called Bill. Thank you. Bill has one fan, and that's all right. That's all right. He'll take what he can get, basically. So, Bill's a puppet, and if you will help me out here on the count of 3, if you can say, "Come on out, Bill," and he's ready to join us. Okay, are you ready? Okay, kids in the back there, are you? Oh, they're good. They're good with Lego. Lego trumps Bill any day, I think, when you're under 4. But okay, on the count of 3, come on out, Bill. 1, 2, 3.
Come on out, Bill.
Hello, everybody. Good to see you, Bill. Looked like your arm was stuck to your face there for a minute. Doesn't that happen to you? Not really. What about you guys? Huh, must be a unique puppet problem. Yes, it probably is. Why is it an all-age service again? Didn't we have those all summer? Well, good point, Bill. Today's the last Sunday of the month, so every last Sunday we do an all-age service. But Sunday school is back on next week, in case anybody's disappointed that it's not Sunday school. Well, I'm glad all the kids are here. Hi, kids. Hi, Jimmy. Well, welcome, Bill. Well, kids, let me guess what you were learning about in Sunday school last week. Was it the fruit of the Spirit? I heard a yes out there. Oh, like love, joy, peace. Exactly. I think you're right. Well, were you there, Bill? No? Well, how do you know this stuff? I just pay lots of attention, you know. I got ears everywhere. Well, Bill, you got me there, I have to say. But today, we're going to be doing something different. We're in a teaching series called Choose. And we're thinking about where God gives everyone a choice about what we're going to become. And last week we heard from the preacher about how God chooses us. And this is the most important choice. That God, before even there was a world, we looked at that verse. It is because of Him, God, that you are in Christ. It's His kindness in choosing us. Well, it's wonderful how God chooses us, how He found us. Exactly, Bill. And at the same time, there's a mystery in which God makes His choice, but He calls us to make real choices as well. And they have real consequences. Your choices, folks, are going to have good consequences or bad consequences, but something's going to happen as a result of your choices. Now, in the last message, the challenge was to choose to build spiritual habits. And I wouldn't expect you to remember what they were, but I'll remind you. Okay, go ahead and tell us. Right, so stop. Everybody, let's say this together. Stop. All right, meditate. Pray. Listen. Well done. And these are building some spiritual habits on a personal level and sometimes together. And today, here's the challenge. Choose to build community. Choose to build community. Well, that sounds good, but rather vague. Can you try to explain that a little more? Well, okay. A little more specific. Right. So, 3 ideas. First one, I will build Christian friendships. Second, I will protect unity. And third, I will make a space at the table. By the way, do you hear the sound at the back of the church? That's the sound of life. Isn't that wonderful? And we're blessed to have these little ones here. So, but Bill's feeling a bit ignored. I can take it. Okay, that's fine. So anyways, do you have any questions? Well, before you get into these big ideas, can you tell us, why is it important for us to build community? Sure. All right, why build community? Well, first reason is, it's how we reflect who God is. What? Well, in the Bible, God is one, but He's also 3. He's Father, Son, and Spirit. And He lives in this eternal community of the most profound love and devotion and loyalty. And the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Spirit, they aren't different faces that God wears at different times. They're the different persons of the Godhead, theologians would say. And we see a community in God. So are you saying, because God is community, we need community too? Like we're made for it. That's right. So the being who made everything and made humans in his image is in this eternal friendship. And so naturally, we also were made for friendships. And because we're made in his image. And you know what God says after he makes the first human? I know this one. It says it's not good for the man to be alone. Exactly. Well, I thought that always just meant he needs a wife. Well, true for most men, and indeed. And I'm thankful that I found a wife. But some are called to singleness too. God institutes marriage, which is a man and a woman joining together for a lifetime. But this statement where God says, what was it again? It's not good for the man to be alone. Well, yeah, it's also pointing to something bigger. It's pointing to the fact that we were built for community. We're built for friendships. You are built to know people and to be known by people. But I'm not so sure that you guys have gone on that well with it as a human race. Well, thank you for your thoughtful critique, Bill. Could you expound on that? Well, after Adam and Eve, turned away from God, they started fighting with each other. Didn't their son kill his brother and stuff? I mean, that's not exactly good community. Well, true enough. As a human race, since our fall from God, we struggle, don't we? I'm guessing this is where Jesus comes in. Exactly. Jesus came to reconcile us to God, to make peace with God, and to reconcile us to one another, to make peace between brothers and sisters. Especially as we come to faith, we find ourselves able to forgive, able to build relationships where we couldn't before. And the Holy Spirit comes to live in us. Every one of us have the same Spirit who's drawing us together. We all call on God as the same Father. So there are many ways that we are made for community. Well, can you tell us about these three ways that you're gonna talk about today? Sure. There's lots of ways to build community, but here's three. I will build Christian friendships, I will protect unity, and I will make space at the table. So first, I'll build Christian friendships. The Bible has many examples of godly friendships. I wonder if you think through the Bible stories can you think, church, of any godly friendships? Paul and Barnabas. First points to Dave Astle. Okay, good job, David Astle. Anybody else? Any godly friendships you can think of? David and Jonathan. You get second prize. I didn't think this was a contest, Bill, but that's all right. Anybody else? Ruth and Naomi, definitely. So here's some great examples of friendships. Now, with Paul and Barnabas, do you know what happens? Barnabas knew that Paul, who was like the worst persecutor of Christians at that time, he knew that Paul had become a Christian, and nobody believed that he was. Nobody trusted him. And Barnabas said, well, this man that nobody wants to be his friend, I will seek him out, and I will make myself his friend, and I will help him to become part of the community. And he did. And it's because of Barnabas that I think that we have the 13 letters of Paul in the New Testament, and all that he did. Barnabas helped, but it started with friendship. That's a very amazing friend. It is an amazing friend. What about David and Jonathan? I think I heard about those guys. Yeah, well, David and Jonathan. So Jonathan's dad was the king. You guys know if Saul was a good king or a bad king? He was a bad king. And so Jonathan wasn't going to get to be king as a result. But he saw in David somebody he could respect, even though David was going to take his place as king. And he loved him as a friend. He was loyal to him. And he promised to stand by him no matter what. What about Ruth and Naomi? Yeah, Ruth and Naomi. Do you guys know that story in the book of Ruth, where Naomi's husband dies, and her daughter-in-law Ruth, her husband dies, and Naomi says, right, I'm going to immigrate back to Judah, back to Israel. And Ruth, who was not from there, she was part of a different people, different language. They served their own gods. She said to Naomi, I'm going with you. I'm going with you. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God. And they were lifelong friends. Well, that's a real friend, to leave your culture and your people and whatever the beliefs you followed. And she joined with Naomi. Exactly. So these people are incredible examples of friendship. They remind me of a proverb. Isn't there a proverb about, I don't know, is there a proverb about sticky friends? You guys know that one? Sticky glue, something? Okay, yeah. One who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin, but there is a friend who does what? Sticks closer than a brother. I knew it. There's sticking in the Bible. There is. In fact, yeah, it really is about sticking. The word there can be translated glue sometimes. So it's a sticky word. Are you a sticky friend? That's a question for us today. Are you a friend who is unreliable? Or are you sticky? So we need to build friends who are like, I'm going to glue myself to you. Loyal and lasting. Yeah, no, maybe not creepy like that. Like, there's probably a line somewhere, but... Okay, I'm sure you're right. Yeah. But we need friends that will, when we annoy them, they don't walk out on us, don't we? You need to be a friend who, when they let you down, you don't write them off, don't we? We need friends that when they're just depressed for months on end, you don't go the other side of the street to avoid them because they're going to be a drag. You stand with them until the Lord lifts them up. We need friends who stick with us. Here's another verse. Real friendships are also where we get some of our best advice. Perfume and incense bring joy to your heart, and a friend is sweeter when he gives you honest advice. Perfume and incense. Who's got their perfume on? How about incense? What on earth is that about? Well, you do need a bit of cultural context, I think. All right, well, let's have it. Well, somebody did mention how cold it is in Scotland. Fair enough, right? Have you ever been to a hot country where you're sweating all the time? Now, suppose then the shower had not yet been invented. What will we all smell like? Okay, so is that where the perfume and incense comes in? That's right. So it's pleasant when your friend is wearing their deodorant. That's what it's a symbol for deodorant. It is. Thank you, Bill. Yeah, so in a way, good counsel, having good words, is like the beautiful smell of a friend who comes into the room and the aroma in the room is improved because the counsel is from their heart, it's wise, it's appropriate, it's just the advice that you need. So you smell good when you give good advice to your friends. Do you smell good? I hope we do. And loyal friends can also say not just encouraging and wise things, but they can say hard things too. I think we often don't bother saying hard things when we actually should. Probably. It says in Proverbs 27, wounds from a friend can be what? Trusted. They can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. That is, they might flatter us, but they don't mean it. The truth is, when a friend has something hard to say, you often don't appreciate it until later, do you? But that's a sign of real friendship. It is. It is. And sometimes friends also need to admit when we've let each other down. And if someone's let you down, we need to choose to forgive. It says in 1 Peter, above all, love each other deeply because love covers over a multitude of sins. So I want to ask you today, will you build Christian friendships? And we need friendships with people who aren't Christians too, and they need friendships with us. But there's something about the spiritual bond of a Christian friendship. Do you know what I'm talking about? That connection, because we have the same Spirit living in us. We love the same Lord. We're heading for the same place in eternity. We need friends who are on that journey together. And what's the second idea? It's I will protect unity. I will protect unity. Well, if Jesus died on the cross so that we could be one, I think we probably need to pay attention to that. I think you're right. We should probably live like it. Yeah, we probably should. And that reminds us too, if Jesus' death on the cross is what makes us one, it's what takes people who would otherwise not be interested or not get along, it makes us one, then it's also trusting in Jesus living in us that enables us to live that out. So it's Christ in us that helps us live in unity. That's right, Bill. Well, here's what God says to the church. Look at these verses, folks. Paul writes this, as a prisoner for the Lord, then I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you've received. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. You're not always very good at that, David. No, I'm a work in progress too. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. Make every effort to do what? To keep the unity of the Spirit. So if he's telling us to keep the unity of the Spirit, to keep it, what's that saying? Well, if we're trying to keep it, I guess it's already there. We just got to keep it. Very profound, Bill. Thank you. Well, what's that about the bond of peace? Well, all right. Parents in the room, if you have or have had kids, any of your kids ever in their lives squabble? Maybe, or kids maybe occasionally squabble? Okay, so have you ever wondered, how can I make them get along? Like, what will it take? Maybe if they, have you ever thought this? Maybe if they have to be together. Have you ever thought that? If they have to be in the same place and they can't get away, they'll just have to get along. So have you ever thought about, right, how am I going to do that? Duct tape! Well, yeah. Stick them together. They'll stick closer than our brother. Well, that's one way to do that, verse, eh? So what if you did duct tape them or tie them together? Did anyone? Well, we don't want to know if you've tried that, but I don't really think that would work. No, it probably wouldn't work. But for believers, we have been. It says it's the bond of peace. Bond speaks of like a chain or a rope or duct tape. Yeah, duct tape that's joined us together, and it's the bond of peace. Peace, like kumbaya. Don't sing, Bill. No, it's not like kumbaya peace. It's actually, in context, the word peace is pointing back to Ephesians 2, where it speaks of how Christ has made peace between us and God and peace between us and one another. And it's that peace through the cross that we were singing about. That is what joins us together. The bond of peace is pointing to what the cross did. Exactly. And so because of him creating that peace, there's actually no stronger or deeper or firmer foundation we could have for peace. We have it. We just have to maintain it. So things like showing respect, not gossiping, what else? Being willing to serve each other? Exactly. So we maintain unity. And it's a choice, though. Paul wouldn't have to command us if it wasn't a choice, would he? So here's a question. Will you maintain that unity? Will you protect unity? So there's three ideas we're looking at. Choose to build community. I will build Christian friendships. I will protect unity. And the last one is I will make space at the table. Well, I think I'll just let you teach this one. So I'm going to say bye to everybody. Bye. See ya. Bye. All right, Bill. See ya again. Bye-bye. All right. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for saying goodbye to Bill. Well, thanks, Bill. So I will make space at the table. What's going on there? Well, do you know when God invites us to be his children, what's he doing? He's making space at his table. He's saying, come and be part of the family. Come and do life with me and with each other. And we get to make space at our table, both literally by sharing our table with others. And I love that we're going to do that today in a church meal. And a big thank you to Wilma and Funky who organized that. I think Wilma's been the master organizer this week. Yeah, it's a lot of work. And other volunteers who help too. It's possible because of that for us to share a meal. We can also share our homes and our tables with each other, or the table at a cafe with each other. There's something very Jesus-like when you share a meal. Did you know that? It's very Jesus-like. Think about the gospel writers, okay? If you were in the first century, if you go to write a book, you don't have like an infinite word count. You buy a scroll, it's only so long. So you can only put so much in it. That's why the Gospels are as long as they are. They reach the end of their scroll. So you got to plan well. You got to pick what matters. Well, what matters about Jesus? So they put in stories of miracles. They put in his teachings. Obviously, the cross and his suffering. But do you know what they put a lot of stories about? Jesus eating. It was important enough to allocate scroll space to Jesus eating with people. There's something there for us to reflect on. That Jesus found it important to share a meal. There's that wonderful story where he spreads a table for 5,000 men, plus women and children, and 5 loaves and 2 fish. He just feeds them all. And it's this picture of God's bounty, his power, his hospitality, his care. It's a foreshadowing of the feast we'll have one day with him in the kingdom of God. Think about the Lord's Supper, this central picture of our faith where a table is spread. This is my body. This is my blood. And our communion with Jesus is fundamentally pictured as a meal. Not just a spiritual meal, but something we actually eat. Something we actually drink. Fellowship happens in a meal. Our salvation is connected to a meal. And all through his ministry, Jesus has friends who have him over. Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. It sounds like he spent a lot of time in their house. And they were good friends. But do you know what? He didn't just eat with his good friends. He'd eat with anybody. And this was significant. For us, I mean, a meal as a meal. And it can symbolize something, right, of friendship and connection. But back then, it really meant a lot. It tore down walls. It is how you forged unions with people. It's how you accepted one another. And he would eat with anybody. He ate with Zacchaeus, the hated tax collector. Matthew, another hated tax collector. They were hated because they would turn coats against their people. He would eat with self-righteous Simon the Pharisee. Didn't mind that either. He would go to a wedding feast where he turns water into wine. I think it's a shame we can't have Jesus over for a meal, isn't it? Except there's this verse in Matthew 25 where he says, I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. Truly, I tell you, whatever you did to one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did to me. We can actually have Jesus for a meal. Now, it speaks in the first place of caring for the poor, but I think it speaks more generally, too, of the community that we invite into our lives. Maybe we can encounter Jesus when we make space at the table, when we make time to eat together, which is something people do less and less of these days. When Jesus shares a meal, he's saying, I accept you, and it's a way of saying, will you come follow me? Amazing spiritual things happen over meals when Jesus is present. Now, I'm very privileged to welcome friends from Canada here today. And these are 2 couples who I've known for over 30 years. And I would just want to tell you a little bit about them. I hope that they won't be upset with me. But I just want to honor them today. Both of these couples have made space at the table for many friends and strangers and stragglers. When my family moved to Comox in the province of British Columbia in 1990, Brad and Jan Minton's home and Calvin and Claire Farnell's home were some of the first homes that we visited and where we were welcomed. When I was a young person, Calvin and Claire were the church youth leaders, and I walked up the street each Sunday to a warm welcome in their home Sunday nights. And as a result, as a result of that welcome, no one had a greater influence on my spiritual formation as a teen. And I'm very grateful. And in the years since then, I have no way of counting the number of meals that they fed me as a single young man when I was batching it. And later Agnes and I and our family have enjoyed meals at their home. And then around tables as we did youth ministry together in our early 20s and fed hundreds and hundreds of meals to young people. In 1999, when I came home from Faith Mission Bible College in Edinburgh, I needed somewhere to live because my family home wasn't available anymore. I had $100 to my name, and I needed a pair of glasses, so I think that's where the $100 went. And in the church I belonged to, St. Peter's Anglican Church, Brad and Jan Minton had a flat above their garage, and they said, "Why don't you come and stay?" And I lived there as a guest for 4 months, rent-free, and I had dinner with them every week. And over meals, you form friendship and trust. And one day I came to their home and said, "There's this girl in Scotland that I think I want to marry." And we were able to pray together about that. And Agnes and I actually skipped over dating, and we just went straight to engagement. It was quite something. It was from that flat that I phoned her and asked her if she would marry me. And it was in that flat that so many days I had profound encounters with the Lord, just alone, meditating and praying. And I was going to be going to Korea, but I got invited to stay in the Comox Valley and work there with Youth for Christ. And it was in that flat that I prayed that decision through, and that I prayed through the decision to ask Agnes for her hand. And what a special place and special memories. During our engagement, when Agnes came over to Canada to visit, where did she stay? She stayed with Calvin and Claire Farnell. And not only did we get food from them and kindness from them, I think I got at least 2 cars from the Farnells at different times too. But in those homes, we saw examples of marriage. We saw examples of family life. We saw examples of ordinary, real Christian living. There's no price you can put on that. I'm so thankful. Now, as we moved to Canada, or we moved to the UK rather, I think one of the reasons God eventually led us after 4 years, we were led, maybe it was 3, I don't know, but we were led to this church, a church that is so amazing. We love this church, and we know we're loved here. And I think God had to bring us to a really, really great church because of the kind of people we'd had to leave behind. And he did us really well. We love you. And I want to say to us as a church, what would it look like for us in this next season as we reset the clock coming into the autumn and school starts and all of that? What does it look like for us to build community? What does it look like for us to make room at the table? What does it look like for us to guard unity no matter what we have to do? Because it's so precious. Jesus died for it. What does it look like for us to build Christian friendships that may last longer than a few months or a few years, but they may last decades. What would it look like for us to do that? And I think for each of us in our hearts to say, what will that be? There's opportunities, there's men's group, women's group, home groups, youth groups, Sunday school. These are important, not just to see bodies show up, so we can see our programs working, but this is where community can form. What does it look like for you to have people over? Maybe the house isn't as clean as you wish. Maybe it's going to be a simple meal or coffee or whatever, but what would it look like to be a little braver and to invite each other into our lives? Isn't that what Jesus has done for us? What would that look like? And what would that say to the world when they see a community like that? I think they'll say, I want that.